Okay.
What is your favorite word, if you have one?
My favorite word. I don't think I have a favorite word. I like to say super a lot. It's a silly word. So
And how do you like your eggs?
my eggs. I really love them poached, but I'm not good at poaching them. But yeah, I think those are the best. Yeah.
And the last question is, will you be my friend?
Oh, yes, hooray. That's so great. I will be your friend. That's such an easy one. I feel happy. Yeah.
So let's talk about this amazing book. Y'all's looks different. Mine's an arc, so mine's flimsier and fell in the pool once. Which
that's
feels
perfect.
fitting,
yeah,
right?
totally fitting. Yeah.
Exactly. So I have a lot of questions, but my first one was, what inspired this?
When I always start a book, I don't really know a lot. Like, I don't know what inspired, but I really just had this idea when I started writing about like a woman getting a beach house and losing it. Like, I was like, that's a premise. And so that was really just it. And I think like my first draft, she probably loses it on the first page. And then I had to fill in some backstory. And now I think she loses it on like page 5. But I really just thought what would happen from there. And then I didn't know anything. I didn't know about a cameraman. I don't know how many spoilers we want to do in your book club. I guess
I think we should, because it does very quickly get into, it is a smaller sort of book. I think we should just go ahead and say straight up, if you haven't finished it, you probably should not listen to this quite yet. Go back and read it, because I think we're pretty quickly going to get into spoiler territory.
That's so great. I guess this is for a book club, so most people should have read it. So that's really fun, because a lot of times when I do read, I can't say anything that makes me feel bad. I mean, even the back cover will tell you things. Like, I think, like, I don't know what page, but really early on, she meets this cameraman. She goes back to her house against her better judgment, and he whacks her on the head with a glass face. And I didn't know that I was going to do that until I did it. Like, that's my whole writing process, is I never know what's going to happen. And I get scared when I'm writing, or I hear like voices in my head, like what she's thinking. And so that's why I like love to write. But besides her losing her house, I didn't know what I was going to do. Yeah.
That is fast. So you don't have like a like, and this is how it's going to end.
No, and I don't have an outline, and I don't have a plan, and I didn't really know this character goes back to New Jersey. I didn't know any of that. I think sometimes when I get really stuck in a plot, then my characters literally just start to do nothing. And this happens to me, and it happened to me in this book, where for a while after she kind of gets settled in New Jersey, and she has the swimming pool, and she has a friend that she doesn't like very much, and the story just gets stalled, and it's all deleted. So everything that's deleted, where she just starts eating swimming pools. No, she starts eating swimming pools. She just goes out for turkey sandwiches all the time, and she takes her friend. The pool that she loves in the summer closes, and so she gets sad, and she goes to the pool on the roof of a health club, and it's so boring. And I cut like 100 pages because I had like this book has forward momentum, and it lost it. And it's very easy to like write the next scene, but it was really easy to cut them. Like, it wasn't painful to like lose. But I think that's the only problem when you don't know what you're going to write, that you can write those boring pages sometimes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is fascinating. Okay. So one of the things that is very noticeable is the sort of the repetition of like, 3 Keiths and the turkey sandwiches and the swimming pools and the Starbucks and the so what were your thoughts on that?
I'm like writing something new right now that I had abandoned. I actually started working on it today. So I actually wrote today, which is so amazing for me, which is funny. But there was Starbucks in it. Like, I feel like there's certain like key things in life that are like important. Like, I actually like to go to independent cafes, like if I can, like that's my preference. But Starbucks are just sort of ubiquitous to me right now. Swimming pools. It didn't used to be that way. Like, this is my 5th book, but I think pools in my novel before this was called Very Nice. And people, the pool was almost like a character in the book. And like, that's why my hair is wet for this. This wasn't not important to me, but I just swam laps for longer than I meant to. And then there was traffic coming home, and then I had to take a shower. But like, swimming is super, super important. See, I said super, so that maybe really is my favorite word, which I didn't know until tonight. Like, I feel a little bit embarrassed. Like, I don't really want to commit to that, so maybe I'll come back. But so yeah, there's certain things. What else is repeated in this book? I don't know, but I knew that was
The three Keiths.
The three Keith. Oh, the Keiths. Yeah. Sometimes I meet people now in real life and their like name is Keith, and I feel like I hope they haven't read my book. Like I just feel bad. Like I don't know that many Keiths in real life. Like I don't know where that name came from, but it feels right to me. Like I'll stand by it like that. You should not trust the Keith if you meet them, and they can prove me wrong. So, but it's not based on any Keith that I know, by the way. So that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was reading it, I was struck by Allison. You know, she's this unreliable narrator, and so much of it is, you know, where I'm like, oh, okay, she's an unreliable narrator because she has, you know, traumatic brain injury and she's got trauma and but even reading the stuff before of the decisions that were so like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Sorry, my ADD meds have stopped working, and I'm feeling it. And so I really felt like she was both, in some ways, I was so sympathetic to her, and in other ways, I found her so unlikable.
You did? See? Okay. But you like this book because you picked this book, but
oh my God.
Yeah. I think we froze.
I loved the book, but there were every time everything that she would do, I would be like, no, stop, don't do that. And then in the once it got to the end, there were things that I was like, yeah, good job, good shot. And then when I read it the second time, I switched, you know, where I was like, at the first I was like, for example, you know, she makes every bad decision. You know, she goes to a second location with a stranger. You know, she drives with a traumatic brain injury. You know, she goes to, you know, a guy's house instead of going to CVS. You know, things that you can look on the outside and be like, don't make bad decisions. But then at the same time, when I read it the second time, I thought, is it really fair that it's not okay to go to a second location, that you have to worry that you're going to get bashed in the head? Is it really, it sucks that you have to say yes to somebody and be polite to somebody because otherwise they might hurt you, you know, and I don't know. This is
really interesting to me to hear about you read it. Cause like, I'm in a place in my life, for instance, where like, I'm in my early 50s. I don't know if now it's called hooking up. It was like one night stands when I was younger, and people used to have them. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, so I guess it's, you know, so is that, I don't know. So I guess that was sort of what she was doing, but she was like saying, maybe I won't have one. So it's really stupid, or is it just something that people still do or don't do? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do anything right now. So
they probably do.
You shouldn't. Clearly you shouldn't. Yeah.
It shouldn't. Although literally I met my husband by going to a second location the first time that I met him at randomly. So every decision,
so you made a good decision, your bad decision.
It worked out. It worked out. But I'm not sure it was a good decision. It was a bad, like, if I had watched true crime when I was growing up, I would have said, what are you doing? Right. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
But of course, most of my decisions were stupid, and, you know, but in the end, they brought me to the place.
Okay.
So the first time that I read it, it's totally stuck with me. And I could not figure out the genre, because a part of me was like, oh, okay, it's horror, but it's also really funny, but it's also, is it a revenge tale, or is it a cautionary tale? So what were your thoughts on that?
Well, it totally is all of those things. And I don't think about genre when I write. And I think sometimes like the genre that I'm sort of put into, like as just a category, is literary fiction. And that just sounds really boring. And so, but I guess that's kind of mainly where I fall. But then my work is always funny. And so I'm like, I guess this is considered like a book about grief and trauma, but it's always supposed to be funny. And this is the first time I've ever written a book that has horror in it. And that was intentional. I made her like a horror scriptwriter, which wasn't intentional. But then when she was writing about horror, it was like it had to be in the book. But so I think it literally is every genre that you said, that's all true. And I think that's like, that's confusing, because I think book marketers and people just want to be able to say, oh, well, here's a romance if you want, or here's, and you can't do that with this book. And maybe that makes it more interesting, but it's definitely a little bit unclassifiable. And like what I hope is that, because every book I try to do something a little different, or I hope I do that, I'll get different readers, so maybe people who like horror might like this book, or maybe it doesn't really conform to what a horror book is. And so then I might piss some people off. And so I don't want to piss anybody off, but yeah.
Well, I don't think that you did that. But you did start a lot of really interesting conversations on our Facebook page.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I have some interesting stuff to go over on that.
I love reading that. Like, I don't shy away from, like, sometimes people say, oh, don't read your Goodread reviews because you're going to get really your feelings hurt. I just want to see everything in a way. So sometimes my feelings get hurt, but really I enjoy it. So that's good.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So did you have any fear about, I mean, it seems like humor is very important to you, and you did it's so hard to move back between bleak trauma and funny, and you did it. Yeah. Did you have any fear about doing that, about inserting humor into something that does have a lot of dark aspects?
No, I don't really worry. Like, I don't really think about that. Like, I didn't worry about that at all. So I think I'm just always funny without meaning to be funny. My brother's a stand-up comic, for instance, but if I tried to be funny, like if I'm like, oh, I'm going to write a joke right now, I think I'd fall flat on my face. That I think a lot of the humor is just really in contradiction. So like, maybe it could be like, oh, there's a zombie apocalypse, but I want to go to a swimming pool. Like, I feel like that's sort of funny. And I feel like that's what happens to my characters too, is they're always contradicting themselves, and that leads to humor. But yeah, I don't really worry what people think while I'm writing. Like, sometimes people talk about who their audience is, and I know people who've like written books and they think about their friends reading them, but I really do think that like my main audience when I'm writing is me, and sometimes I really entertain myself, and I guess sometimes I feel like I'm so off key, even if I don't necessarily look it, that it's like almost like a miracle that I get to publish like what pleases me, because that's how I write. Yeah.
I love it. So Keith, the third Keith.
Is he the police officer or the cameraman?
Oh, second Keith, cameraman. Second Keith. God.
Police officer is really minor. Yeah.
So second Keith.
Right.
So his mental illness made him in some ways like a very sympathetic character, but in some ways he was like a really terrible character. And I thought it was so interesting how, not only did you, go through the I wasn't on medication before, and you get this little glimpse of like, oh, okay, well, if his ex-wife said you had to stay on vacation, he probably has a past history of, being violent.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, okay, he sucks. That sucks. But I could kind of see, I deal with mental illness. Like sometimes, you're not totally in control of it. But then in the end, when, he, is medicated and comes back and has, every privilege known to him, and he's still like, why don't you just stay here? I've learned nothing. I loved that.
Okay. Yeah. He's supposed to be a sympathetic character, but he does make good coffee, so there's that.
He does. Yeah. So do any of the, other than Allison, are any of the characters ones that because they're all very complicated, and they all have their, it's hard to tell exactly like who's the hero and who is the villain in this story. Is there a hero or a villain, or is it just a slice of life of?
I kind of feel like it's a slice of life, but I mean, I do feel, and people have different opinions. Like some people, like I actually genuinely think that Danny Yang is like a good person. Like that's her brain surgeon and her boyfriend that she has mixed feelings about. Like I truly believe that he's nice, and that he knows her, and that he accepts her, and that he wouldn't be like, sometimes I feel like they're in this book, at least, like, is she settling, you know what I mean? Like, but I think sometimes if you find somebody and they like love you and they have a swimming pool and they have money and they kind of accept you for your weirdness, like, isn't that great? Like, that's real. Like, I think in the book she never really understood if it was real, and I think it takes him, I think the last scene that they spend together, he's trying to convince her and then she figures it out, maybe too late, but maybe not too late, you know, that's sort of up for debate.
The you know, with Danny, I really struggled with sometimes feeling like, oh, this could be a fairy tale, that, you know, the person that, like, he saves her and like he literally saves her life, and then he's like, I want to take care of you, and he, you know, does all this to try to love her, but then at the same time, um he's taken advantage of her, and that, you know, she's on
Right?
medication, she's had a traumatic brain injury, she's like, he's really overstepping every
I guess
professional.
he really is. And I wasn't aware of that while I was writing it. I wasn't, but he totally is. He 100,000 times over is. So yeah. But then I guess that's like your How You Met Your Husband. It turns out your husband, you know what I mean? Like, he's overstepping everything. Like, he was holding her hand in the hospital during intake, like 100% wrong. But like, I don't know. I still think he's nice. It's like weird about the rules, like in life, that we really should follow. And then like, he's breaking all the rules. I think a lot of times when people do things they shouldn't do, if nobody knows about it, maybe it's okay. I mean, it's probably not okay, but I think we do a lot of things in life that nobody knows about, and we want to keep it that way.
No, I totally get it.
Okay.
The let's see, unreliable narrator, like, this is me trying to read my own handwriting. Okay, I've asked that one. Okay, so in the end,
Okay.
she goes.
Mm-hmm.
She goes back to his house. She falls asleep. I wanted to strangle her, but like, I get it. You had traumatic brain injury. You're dealing with trauma. Okay. What do you, so the way that it ended, the first time I read it, I was like, good shot. You know, awesome. Yeah. And then the second time I read it, I was like, oh, that's a terrible decision. You're going to go to jail.
There's that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no pool in jail. And
I don't want her to go to jail.
I don't want her to go to jail, but she's at least going to end up in, you know, an institution for a while. And there were so...
It's weird. Like, if you take fiction, like, I feel like my fiction is like, it's sort of based in reality, but there's also like a fairy tale-ness to like The Doctor, or you know what I mean? And so like, I want you to read my book as if it's like in the real world, but at the same time, like, maybe the story never would actually happen. So I kind of like your first reading where you're like, good for you. And then she can go leave it. It's a beautiful day. And I don't want her to go to jail. And in like real life, she probably would go to jail or an institution, but maybe because this is fictional and I ended on the cut, we can just imagine whatever we want for her. And I mean, that just depends on you as a reader. And I did actually get one angry email from someone who was mad at me because they thought she was going to be in jail, and they're like, why did you do that to her? Which I guess was nice because they cared so much. But that's kind of what I believe, is that it's not 100% real. Like, I'd put this on like a scale of reality, like we'll give it like 85% or 80%. So she doesn't go to jail. Like, this is
Love it. So like magical realism without the magic.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go.
I love it. Okay. That's good. That's good, because I kept going back and every time I would read it, I would go back and forth, and then in the end I was like, I am team ginger cats. The ginger cats are the winners. I love them so much.
My cat is like hiding right now where I pick him up. So yeah, he's in the corner. I love him. I have ginger cats. So,
me too.
You
Hunter,
do?
Yeah, Hunter S. Tomcat. He is
enormous. You get the great names, Darth. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I love them.
Ridiculous. Yes. Let's see. So it's done. Doctor, okay, so one of the things that you explored in such an interesting way was the idea of consent, and the idea of you know, her being able to say no when she didn't want to have sex, and then what the repercussions were, and then her anger at Danny, which at the time felt so irrational to me. The idea that she was so mad he didn't get her consent to save her life, and
that was irrational, wasn't it?
It was, but then at the same time, I thought he's a safe person to get mad at.
Yeah.
Versus the other people who, who knows what the first Keith did. He didn't sound like he was a very nice guy.
Yeah.
And then the second one, attacked her. And the third one didn't listen to her.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought it was such an interesting concept of consent.
Yeah, I think you're right that he was a safe person to be mad at. Like, that's something I hadn't thought of, but yeah, it's really true. And I don't think, I mean, the whole idea, I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time in hospitals and worlds, but I think when a young woman goes into the hospital with a very treatable injury and is unconscious, they just fix you. Like, consent is not an issue, right? Like, I don't think, yeah.
Yeah, so, definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Yes.
So so he was like, what are you talking about? I think that was kind of his reaction to that. Like, he tried, in fact, to be really respectful and listen to her, but I think in his head, he was probably thinking, what are you talking about? You'd be dead. Yeah. So.
Yes. Yeah. So you explore vulnerability a lot in this, the vulnerability of when you're in a hospital and you're out of control, or when, someone you love is dying, with her dad dying, or, a hurricane, or, basically I can't think of a vulnerability that you don't have in here. So did you, was that like on purpose? Was there anything that you wanted the reader to get to?
Well, see, this book was so strange for me because, like, the horror element, like the framework of this book is completely fiction, like hurricane, losing a house, the horror element, like revenge, like that's nothing that I've ever even come close to experiencing in my own life. But like when Allison goes back to New Jersey and she shows up in her mom's house and there's an annoying dog, and they go to the hospital and the grandmother doesn't put on her seatbelt and it goes beep, beep, beep. And they go to this hospital. I mean, the hospital they go to was like the hospital my dad died in. Like, that's what I was seeing. And so it was really strange to me that I was writing a book that was like 100% made up, that became so autobiographical, like in the middle, and then it goes away. But I think I was surprised that I wrote about that, because I never thought I was going to write about my dad, so I kind of just, I went, like, that's where I wanted to write. So that's what I ended up writing, but it was really surprising to me. And some of that part of the story was a little bit painful to people in my family, because they didn't really know I was going to write about dad. You know what I mean? So I had to warn them and stuff like that. Yeah.
Was that difficult? Were they okay with it in the end? Or?
In the end, they were okay with it. There was a little bit of like, my brother wasn't so happy with it. And that's the first time I've had to experience that with somebody, where it like really matters to me how they feel. Do you know what I mean? And so it's okay. Like, you know what I mean? And I think that's tricky here, I'm going to pick up my ginger cat. I think like writing fiction is so weird because we use our life as our material, right? And you can just get into trouble. This is actually named Ginger because my daughter named him. So it's not a pun. So yeah, but I don't want to get in trouble. And I feel like it's scary with writing, like, you know what I mean? And so yeah, I think that's an unarticulate way to end that thought, but that's just I love writing fiction because it's fiction. Like, I mean, I don't even know how people can write memoirs. Like, I don't even know how they could do it, even because, even if you change names of the characters, the people they're writing about, they all know. And I don't ever want to touch that genre. That's like one thing I'm like, no. Yeah.
Well, I've written 3 memoirs, and now I'm trying to write fiction, and I am not good at it. So let me tell you, you got a gift. To me, memoir is much easier than fiction. Fiction is, it's killing me. Actually, this is really helpful. You saying that, you just started writing and then it just came.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm so caught up in plot and how do I do this and and if I want this to end, then how am I going to do this and how?
No, just trust it. Just trust what'll come. It can be really fun. Like I like, see, sometimes when people say writing is like really hard or really like suffering, like when writing is going well, like it's really, like I really love it. Like it's really like you're creating your own entertainment. Like I can sort of see it all in my head like it's a movie, you know, like so every scene when I write is like jump, and usually they're going to be in a different place because it's like a new scene. So I'm thinking more like a filmmaker, a screenwriter, though I don't know how to write screenplays, but I feel like that's how I'm thinking when I'm at that every scene is like a different scene, so I can visualize it and put it in a place, and that helps me write. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah,
but I think writing is miserable for me. So
no, see, that's no good. I think you need to make it not miserable. So I don't know.
I love having written. As soon as I'm done, I'm like, oh, I love this. I can reread. Oh, yay.
See, no, I like actual writing. Yeah. It feels good. You're just typing and like these ideas coming. You're like, where do they come from?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to turn on more pink noise, I think.
Yeah. And just maybe don't care.
Yes, that is what I need to do.
Yeah, I think not caring. I think like people who agonize to like write the perfect paragraph and spend an hour on a paragraph, like that sounds like torture to me. Like a paragraph should take you like a minute. You know, why not? Yeah. So.
Oh my God. Yeah. I have been working on this book for literally 6 years.
No, see, that's when it gets painful. That's when it gets painful. I'll send you this link to an essay that I wrote about it. Like sometimes when you're working on a book for 6 years, you might need to start a new book and then go back to your book. I don't want to tell you because I just met you, but yeah. Writing should be painful. Yeah.
Well, see, here's the problem is I started that book because I couldn't finish the book that I actually did finish because I couldn't finish that. So it'll work out.
It'll work good.
So I think it's really interesting. One of the things that I had written down here is that one of the things that felt the realist is the grief that she felt for her father, and the idea of the swimming pools. For me, every time I would read about her like obsession with swimming pools, to me it was more about, you know, the first time that she ever mentions the swimming pools when she was with her dad and everything was happy and everything was good, and sort of in this book it kind of felt like it was this like trek to try to find that time again and that safety again and that person again that she misses.
That's nice. See, I hadn't thought about that, but that registers as true to me. And so, I think I just told you like a couple of minutes ago that like that part about the hospital and the dad, like that was the autobiographical material in the book. And so it seems like that sort of registered with you as being intimate. So that's great. Like it means I was successful. So thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see.
Here we go.
Done. And you talked about the
I'm covered in cat fur. I'm really professional. I'm sorry. This is why I need to do events in person.
You never.
Totally works. My shirt. Oh well.
Oh, and it says my internet connection is unstable, so hopefully you can still hear me.
But... Oh yeah, I can. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. The hole in her head never completely healed, which, you know, to me, and because I like look for signs that aren't there, I was like, oh, that's the unresolved trauma because it never, you know, it never healed. And when she finally does feel like it's healed and she finds the water bottle, and was that like a talisman kind of thing, or just more of a, this is just what's going on in her head right now and not all of it makes sense and some of it does?
The water bottle, yeah. I had that moment when I'm writing it. It's like, oh, she found her water bottle as if she'd found a piece of herself. And it just gave me such pleasure to write it. And I don't know if it's symbolic, or part of me actually really believes that she found the water bottle and she found a piece of herself. And that in real life was my favorite water bottle in the whole world. And it's gone. Like I lost it. And I feel really sad about that. Someone looked it up for me, and you can get it on eBay for like $100, and I won't go there. I know, because it's not a model they make anymore. Wait, can I pick up my computer and show you something?
Yes.
Okay, let's just see. This room is still in progress, obviously. Can you see the picture?
Is that the water bottle?
That's my water bottle.
Oh my God, I love it.
So I really painted it before I lost it. So that's good. So I have it. So it was just really like, I think there's this whole idea, I don't know, like I'm putting in like all these like hints. Like if you knew me, you would recognize like my friend, I won't say her name. She's like, oh, that's your water bottle. And I like really gave her pleasure to read about my water bottle in her book, or that's my coffee mug in that book. There's a coffee mug that has like a fish, like her favorite mug. Just these little tiny touch pieces that just please me when I write. Like that's what I'm saying about how writing really pleases me. And so, but I mean, I think that the hole in her head does heal. I think she doesn't feel like it's like she's always touching it and imagining like that lava could come out of it, but I think it's healed. I think that's just her unreliableness. And I had another friend who's just like, Marcy, she came to a reading and she asked me a question, but she didn't ask it during the reading because she didn't want to like make me feel ashamed. And so now I'm just going to tell it to your group. Where she was like, what did she say? Oh, that there was no way that this woman could have this injury with her head where you could actually see her brain. Like she just didn't believe that at all. Like she was just thinking there's no head injury where you could see your brain through a hole in your head. She's like, is that possible? And I was like, well, I mean, you know, probably like here I am pointing at a flaw in my book for everybody. But it's probably not possible, right? I mean, I guess she's right. I don't know. I mean, I did do research, but I didn't go that far. I went with it. Did you go with it?
I mean, I went with it, but with the clause that she's an unreliable narrator and that it probably wasn't that bad, because if it was that bad, she wouldn't be able to swim. It wouldn't have
healed up enough. Well, she'd already had surgery, so then she can swim, right?
I mean, it seems like it would take a little bit longer, but I mean, I've seen people have brain surgery and they take off the skull and they're still talking.
See, this is fiction though. That's a good thing. Like, I don't feel like I have to be that realistic. Like, I feel like I just have to be realistic enough that you don't want to stop reading because you're like, this is BS. And so that's my goal. Like, I did some research about brain surgery, but I don't expect people to really, I don't think it would hold up to like a brain surgeon's reading this. And I think that's okay.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, just like I don't think she'll go to jail. It's like, I mean, I am writing fiction.
Right.
Yes. Love it. We'll just keep on going back. Like if I were like on a courtroom, I'd be like, this is fiction. I would just repeat that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. This is my story of my thoughts. Yes. Totally. Totally got it. Okay. So we have a lot of questions in the Q&A, but some of them, quite a few of them you've already answered. So one of them is, this is a great question. So the way that the book is written, that's very, you know, the small sentences and very just like this happened, very sort of dry. And there in some ways it has like a childlike quality to it. Is that just Allison's voice, or is that from the traumatic brain injury, or is that just the way that you heard it?
I mean, I think it absolutely works for the brain surgery. Like it works really well. It goes hand in hand, but to some extent that is also how I write. So that's kind of interesting. You'd have to compare it. Like, by the way, if you like this book, I'm going to be like an advertisement for yourself, but like, it would be interesting to like read my other books and to see how they compare, because I always do like short sentences. I never like to write too complicated a fashion. And I love repeating things. Like I love having a short phrase and then repeating it in the next sentence. Like that's not an accident. And I also, for some reason, and I don't have a real reason why, with dialogue, there's a lot of times where I put some in, just, I don't use a lot of contractions. I will say I am, and it drives some people nuts. And maybe I don't want it to sound too much like real life, but it just really pleases me, the rhythm. Like, and I'm not a poet, I don't write poetry, but somehow the way the sentences read really matters to me as I write them. But I don't think, I mean, I could just like lie and take credit and say, yes, this is how somebody with a brain injury would sound. And now I wish I could go back a minute in time and say that, but that's just how I like to write. Like it's intentional. It's just my style. Like I do feel like, I can't speak for myself, but sometimes people will say, like, if they were to read some of my books without the cover and know that I had written them, that they would be able to tell that it was my book, because I have a voice that's consistent.
Yes, it's distinctive. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, it was, I would say it took me maybe a chapter or two to get in enough to find the rhythm to be like, Okay, all right, I see it. But yeah, that first like chapter or two, I was like, okay, wait, where's the where? Oh,
I'm
okay.
so glad. I'm so glad that you made it through, and because I know you didn't even like her at first. So yeah. So
Yes. No, it was so, and it's so interesting. The further that I would get, like I could hear a narrator, and it wasn't Allison. It was like it was almost like I don't know. It was almost like a fairy tale kind of narration of yeah. Actually, it's a very fairy tale-ish now that I think about it.
And I have that. My third novel is called The Red Car. It was described as like a fairy tale, like for grown-ups. So yeah, maybe I do. It's funny because I like happy endings, and I think this isn't the first book where I'll write a really disturbing ending, but I'll leave it like in this happy sentence, and then I'll cut it. And so that's just something I do. Like yeah.
Let's see. Jane Corley says the Vera Kelly stuff is by Rosalie Knecht.
Thank you. I'm really embarrassed. Sometimes I blank on things like that, but all three of those books are just great. Yeah.
Let's see. If you think about the story after the ending, would you want Allison to be pregnant and have a Phoebe?
I do. Yeah. I totally do. I totally want her to have a Phoebe. Yeah. And that was one thing I had to do when I revised, by the way, is I think I had her, well, in the very beginning, she's taking pain pills and she's drinking, and there's like Phoebe. And when I revised, I didn't take it all out, but I took a lot of it out because we know you're not supposed to do that when you're pregnant. So even though she's not pregnant, and I felt really sympathetic for her because she had to get through that whole wedding without drinking. I felt terrible for her because that's how I get through weddings. It's just drinking the free alcohol. And then I let her drink a gin and tonic for her dad. She takes 2 sips. I think that's acceptable, by the way. But yeah, I really want there to be a Phoebe. So that, yeah. And she's not going to jail. So
okay, good. Yeah,
it's all good.
She doesn't go to jail. She has a Phoebe. Love it. Yeah. Okay. What is your favorite turkey sandwich?
My favorite turkey sandwich is like, I make them myself and they're different. It's really basic, and it's just like from like a kosher Jewish deli, and it would be on like rye bread, and it would have Russian dressing and like just plain. And I just love those. And then like if I make a turkey sandwich for myself at home, I'll just get like good sourdough bread, and I'll put like avocado and like some romaine lettuce is really good too. You know, so they're different. You can do it almost any different way. And I still make them. I still love turkey sandwiches. I tried to go to my deli with my mom yesterday, and it was like closed on Mondays for the summer. I'm like, you're kidding me. So
the summer?
Yeah.
For the whole summer?
For the whole summer. I mean, yeah, this one delicatessen just was closed for the whole summer on Monday and Tuesday, and we went on a Monday. So now we know better. But yeah.
Oh, wait, throughout the summer, they're closed Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah,
you didn't go Monday, and they said, we'll see you in the fall.
Yeah, no, the deli's open just on Monday.
Oh, okay.
It's not such a big crisis. So yeah. But I mean, I think you can make turkey sandwich anyway, but that's just my basic is like the Jewish deli turkey sandwich.
Love it. Casey said, and you've already answered some of this, but I think this is really an interesting comment. So have you or someone close to you ever experienced a traumatic brain injury? As someone who has and has friends as well, I could definitely relate to it and understand the thought process. It was really, as horrifying as it may be to some, it felt very true to life.
Well, whoever wrote that, just thank you. Like, I'm glad. Like, I would hate to have written something that would offend people who've had brain surgery. And I did do some reading about it. And I always just want to be really sympathetic. I don't want to make light of something serious. And I don't have like a close friend. Like I feel like in an awful way, if I had to say that the brain injury was like convenient for the plot more than my wanting to write about brain surgery, there's some truth to that. But at the same point, I absolutely did do research, and I didn't want to offend any readers. And yeah.
Love it.
Okay.
Lori asks, very good question, why did she only take one cat? She should have taken both of them.
I feel that way too. I feel like a little bit confused about that. That's just sort of how I wrote it. Maybe because she had one hand, but she asked the other cat if he wants to go. And the other cat's like, no, I don't want to. And I think she just sort of was more fixated on that one cat. But it is problematic, right? It really is. So that's a complicated ending.
It is.
It is
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, she should have taken them both, don't you think? So
or left them both and called the
yeah.
ASPCA or but you know what I liked, even though what I wanted was for both the cats to be like, hell yeah, we're a power team, and then they jump in the car and then they go off, and but
that's not like how cats behave though, is it?
No, it's not.
No.
And I kind of in a way liked that, because it sort of goes back to consent, that you're like, cat, what are you doing? Don't stay here with this guy who may be dead. What are you you're gonna have to eat him. What? But you know, you're allowed to make bad decisions. And cats,
so that one cat did want to stay. And I know that like a cat on a road trip, like, well, we don't think about that part. You know, we can think about Phoebe, but we don't think about how miserable the cat is driving to New Jersey, because that's no good.
Exactly. Let's see. Okay. I know suspension of Prim says, I know suspension of belief has to be present in reading this book, but I had some trouble with Missy, the Starbucks barista, sending her on her way to her car without calling an ambulance. What do you think about Missy letting her drive away?
You know, now that I think about that, I have no problem with that whatsoever. I don't know. She gave her free coffee, right? That was pretty nice. She let her pay for the thing. I mean, there's another, like I think a page later, it was one of my friends' like favorite lines when I was writing about, where the boy points at her. It says, "Mommy, that woman has blood in her hair." And the mom's like, "Let's just keep on walking." I don't know. Like Missy's at work, and I think sometimes everybody thinks somebody else is going to take care of it. And I think once Allison knows that she looks like somebody that someone's going to stop, like she figures it out after that boy comes, and she just gets the hell out of there. Like maybe if she'd stayed in the rest stop for a couple more minutes, the police would have been informed. But it's interesting about suspension of disbelief, because I think there's so many places in this book that somebody could have trouble with. And I hadn't thought about that moment before. But now that you think about it, yeah, absolutely. Why didn't Missy, you know, she did say you should call the police, but she just, you know, did the next customer. Yeah. But it's a really good observation that I hadn't thought of before.
Let's see. So Jamie says, not a question, but I wanted to say that I read this in the course of 24 hours, and I was so captivated by Allison's adventure. I had crazy dreams from start to finish. Oh, me too. And I adored the wedding karma conflict.
Well, thank you. The wedding scene was really fun to write. Like, you know what I mean? And I don't know how to behave at weddings. And I kind of took some of my own experience from that. And I had been like, that was a weird scene where I'd been talking to my sister, and I was just like, oh, I'm stuck and I don't know what to write. And she just went on this crazy rant on the phone about karma. And so those lines about like the Holocaust and all of that, like I just took them from my sister. And so it worked out really well. And so I think turned the acknowledgements from it. But I feel like weddings are things that people are loved. Like people love them, and they are kind of sacred. So in a weird way, I was sort of trampling on something that people care a lot about. But maybe I think there might also be a lot of people that have a hard time like standing in a big banquet hotel room, like acting appropriately and listening to the loud music and eating the salmon. I think it goes both ways. You're nodding like you might too.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm not allowed to go to most weddings.
Oh, you see, yeah, they're hard. They're really hard. They're so fraught, and like people do cry, and they do want to get married, and lots of people do get drunk. I don't know. Yeah, big parties. I don't like big parties.
Same. Yeah. Me either. I will send you a gift card. Good for you. I won't be there. Yeah. Absolutely. You know what I really liked about the karma conversation is at the end, I kind of went back of like, you know, is that karma that he got, you know, bashed in the head with the vase, you know, and but then or is it not? Because, you know, she talks about how like there's not really karma because a bad things happen to everybody. And so then it's like, okay, well then is it just, you know, pushing the badness forward? Is it just, you know, creating a cycle? And I don't know, I liked the idea that both of those could be explored in the actions.
I think you can explain things by karma, or you can just like say just coincidence, and both are right, you know?
Yeah. And Jane says you handled the traumatic brain injury issue well, member of that club as well, and you did fine.
Thank you.
Let's see. And Prim says, can you talk a little bit? Oh, yeah, this is a good question. Can you talk a little bit about Allison's family? They seemed very unkind and sort of selfish. Was her dad kind to her? Was he different, or are we reading in too much?
I think families are so weird. And so, yeah, like, I think the dad was kind of, I think in a weird way, the mom really loved her and just loved I think it was just more like honest. Yeah, this is a hard question because of my family. Yeah, I don't know, but I think like the whole perfect family is also, they exist, and I sort of witness other people's quote unquote perfect families. And I guess one thing I witnessed, because I have a 12-year-old daughter now, but she was a baby once, is that my family didn't react to babies the way you want them to. And some people will have a baby and like everybody will come and they'll be in your house and they'll cook you food and they'll take care of you. And I got like none of that treatment. So you know what I mean? So maybe that's in the book, but I think that doesn't mean, it really doesn't mean that like my mom didn't like love me and love my child. Like she loves Nina so much, but I think she just wasn't there for like that expectation the way we're meant. So I think there was like a level of honesty to it, and to some people it's sort of surprising because I think all families are different. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they're all complicated.
Yeah, but hopefully I showed some love in there, and so
yes.
Thank you. You had to say that. You had no choice. But.
no, there really was. Every single character was complicated. There was not a single character that I was like, that I didn't in some way either like or want to save, or that I saw myself in, you know, whether good or bad.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the reason why this book was so intriguing, because it wasn't a very obvious, like, here's the good guy, here's the bad guy, here's how this has happened, and here's the end. And instead you think about it, it's stuck.
Yeah. Like, I feel like the brother in that book is like so sad that like no one's paying attention to his baby. And I totally get that for that character, you know, like when he calls her Miami, he's like, when are you going to come see my baby? And I, you know, and he's right, by the way, his like younger sister can't even remember his baby's name, you know, like that's not great. So yeah, like I have sympathy for him for sure. Yeah.
That is so interesting, because I read it and I was like, she's had surgery. She's good. Leave her alone. Why are you? But yeah, I mean, and I think it's just, it depends on like what we bring to our shared experience of, you know, what can I relate to and what can I not, and I think that's why this book is so complex. I would say, like, it's such a simple and complex, scary and funny. Like it's such a hard recipe to get together, and like you did it. So what are you working on now? What are your next plans?
I know. I've got all sorts of plans. I haven't really committed. It's funny because I had this novel. This was what I wanted to be. I wanted to have a book finished and come out and be working on something, which is something I've never been able to do in my whole career. Like, this is my 5th book. I always have the book. I don't know what I do in that year and a half in between when you sell a book and when you write a book, but I don't write new things. And I want to. And so here I am, I'm like back in that same spot. And so like today I was just like, well, I really don't want to start something new, but I really want to be writing. And I had started writing something about a year ago because I had put it aside. I decided I didn't like it. And so today I was like, well, I'll just go back to that because it's already started, a novel. And I was like, oh, I like this pretty well. So maybe I'm working on something. So that's really good. And I want to write the screenplay of Hurricane Girl. So I need to go buy a book about how to write screenplays, because I realized I opened a document and I was like, I don't know what to do. There's a whole other format. It's interesting. So I want to teach myself that.
You know what I just got? Wait, hang on a second. I think I have it. Let me find it. It's Fleabag, the Scriptures.
Wow, and that's so smart.
But it's basically her script. It really shows kind of.
Someone else told me that that's the best way to learn how to write a screenplay, is not to buy a book. You just helped me so much.
Yes, it's very, very helpful. So yeah,
I'm gonna order that.
Yeah, it helped me because I was like, oh, I want to learn how. I don't know that
I mean, that's the way to learn. You just look at one. So because if you just, great. Thank you. I'm going to order it. Maybe I'll order it from your bookstore.
That's where I got it, was from.
That's what I'm going to do. Because I'm just so pleased that you picked my book. Like, it just made me so happy. Like, before the book came out, I knew about this. It was like a really big deal to me. So yeah.
Well, I immediately, as soon as I read it, I was like, I need to discuss this with people because I have so many thoughts and I want to be able to unpack it. And does this mean this? And does this mean this? And what about this? Or maybe it doesn't mean anything. I don't know. And so this was perfect. And much like the book, very cathartic. And I'm so excited to see what is coming from you next.
Thank you.
And I'm so thankful that you were able to join us.
I know, this was fun. Yeah. I love your bookcases, are really beautiful.
Oh my gosh. They're ridiculous with all sorts of taxidermy and
I didn't see that. Nice.
Yeah. Look, all my books are black over there and all they're colorful over there. And they were supposed to be in a sort of color format, and then I got distracted. And then also there's just too many black books. Like, people need to stop having all the black.
I didn't realize there were so many black books.
Yellow. It's gonna go over there. All right. Well, I want to say thank you to you, and thank you to everybody who.
They were really good questions. It was a really great group. It felt like.
Aren't they great? Oh my gosh. They're all. Oh, wait a second. There's one more question. What about the sister-in-law though? She's the worst. She never came back from that run. She was just like running away from the baby. She never came back.
Yeah, she's just the worst.
I love it. I love it. So let's see. Next month's book I had, and no, I've lost it. It's okay. Well, it's Florida Woman. It's so good. It's a quick ride. It's fast and just sort of fun, and it's sort of like a gender bent Joe Exotic, but with monkeys and great, interesting queer characters, and it's fun. So it should be out. You should have already got it in the mail if you're maybe I think and then the month after. I don't think we have yet, so I don't think I could say what it is yet because I'm not 100% sure that we've gotten approval. So like when I pick my books, I pick it and then I'm like, this is the book I really want, and then Elizabeth has to go and be like, can you get us these books? And almost always she puts together a miracle, and she and Vicky are like, okay, maybe stop asking us last minute. But yes,
I want to go back and see retroactively what books you've been selecting.
Oh my gosh, they are fun, weird,
awesome
books.
Yeah, I'm really gonna look it up. This seems like the best book. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous, and I love it, and it saved my sanity. I mean, literally, it saved me over and over, especially during COVID, because there was nothing I could do, and I just felt so miserable. But I could read, and I could pick books for the book club, and then it felt like I wasn't alone. And so now every time I read, I feel like I'm reading with 2,000 of my friends, and I'm reading and I'm like, oh, they'll love this. And then I'm like, oh, they won't like this. Okay, I'm going to put that over there. Okay, here's another. Oh, they're going to love this one. Oh, no, you can't kill a dog. No, not that one. And then I'm, and then you find the perfect one. It doesn't end, and I just get so excited, and I can't wait to share it. It's like sending a Christmas gift out to 2,000 of your friends. So
nice. Yeah.
Sorry,
it was great. I used to read books to my stuffed animals, but you read books to 2,000 people, so that's even better.
Love it. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much, and thank you, Vicki, for doing this.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Okay. So
right.
Fun.
Okay.
All right. So, and check out Marcy's other books, which I don't have here because I want to read them too, but I haven't got them either.
I'll give you a visual for something. I don't have. There's a swimming pool on the cover. Very nice. So there you go.
Oh, That's a great cover.
Yeah, it's good. They had a friend. Oh no, that's actually the German edition. I've got so many editions of this book. But yeah, so they did the same book in German and for the American paperback and in Britain. But it's a beautiful painting by like a French artist. So yeah, so it's very cool. Like I loved it. But so there was just a visual for everybody since you didn't have one. So self-promotion. Thank you. We should have said goodbye 20 seconds ago. I'm embarrassed. Okay.
No, that's good. See, we're ending 2 minutes early.
I can. Go look for my other cat. I'm joking. Yeah.
Well, go give your family and your cats a hug from me.
Okay, I will. All right, good night. Goodbye. Thank you.